is that there's one that's more comfortable, more natural that we tend to lean toward. And so that's what we're looking for when you're trying to figure out your type, or when you're trying to figure out your child's type, is where is their most comfortable place of being, and can I meet them there?
Yes.
Because they're going to be able to develop much more healthy if you can meet them at their most comfortable place. And the research shows that we develop better as humans if we spend a lot of time in our most comfortable place, not too much time. We don't want to spend all our time there. But if we can develop those most comfortable parts of ourselves first, then we can have space to develop the other side. And I think a lot of times what we do with our kids is we see something in them that's lopsided, and we want them to work really hard on the other side, and we kind of force that on them. And it's not making space for that way that they operate more naturally. And if we can make space for that first, then they can develop the other side. So that's the essence of how I use Myers-Briggs in families, is identifying those strong functions and helping us reach those first.
That's such a great reminder, Sandra, of just, we are as parents, we're always looking for, where's the deficit? What do they need more of? Let's, make sure they have that thing. But if we can meet them in that place where they do feel confident and strong and comfortable, then they're more resourced and they can then stretch. We're trying, we kind of go backwards. We're trying to get them to stretch before we've met them where they're comfortable.
Yes, that's a perfect explanation of it. If you think of the introversion extroversion example, if you're an introvert, when you have had time to go inside and rest, then you're much better at coming out and extroverting because you're well-resourced, was a really great way to put it.
That's something with kids in particular. I think there's starting to be a shift, but here in American culture, for sure, in a lot of other countries, there has been a very strong societal preference for extroversion. And shy kids, and I was one of them, shy kids get a bad rap, and parents spend so much time worrying and trying to get this kid to come out of his shell. And what you're saying is implying that it's okay. Let him be. Don't let him shut himself off from the world. Of course, that's not what we want.
Right. And what's interesting is that it is definitely, extroversion is definitely pushed more, and especially in U.S. culture, maybe not so much in some other cultures, but in U.S. culture, extroversion is rewarded. And we actually slightly, if you look at the statistics, slightly have a bent towards introversion. There's slightly more introverts in the world than extroverts. And I was actually looking through, in preparing for this podcast, I wanted to look at the breakdown of percentages for men or boys. And there's actually more of a preference towards introversion in men than when you look at the statistics for women. So it's 57.8% of the global sample of men prefer introversion, and 42.2% for extroversion.
And then so many of us women, as both moms and partners, come along and say, tell me what you're feeling.
Yeah. Talk to me. Engage with me. Be with me.
Yeah. And where I know as an introvert, part of being an introvert means that I need time alone to process and even figure out what I'm thinking before I can talk to you. That's a kind of mind-blowing tidbit right there. Thank you.
Yeah. And for introversion, other great things, if you have an introverted child, getting places early, like if they have some sort of activity they do, whether it's gymnastics or whatever. I know a lot of us are not able to participate in activities at the moment, but if you are, an introverted child really benefits from getting someplace early so that they can see what's going on and take stock of the situation before they jump in. There's actually a doctor of neuroscience. He's a professor of neuroscience at UCLA, and he is doing research where he does brain imaging, EEG scans of brain activity, and comparing that to Myers-Briggs personality types and seeing what happens with brain activity in the different types. And he's finding that there are clear patterns in how we use our brains based on our Myers-Briggs functions. The interesting thing about introversion, extroversion, I actually just did an episode where we talked about this, is that introverts tend to go to the back of their brain first, which is where we consider and reflect and compare things to our experiences, and analyze and before we come to the front of our brain, which is the part that decides and acts. Whereas extroverts, when inputs come in, it goes directly to that front part of their brain. And so you can see why children and adults who prefer introversion just need more time to engage. So you get to an activity early, you give them wait time when you ask them a question so they have time to think about it before they can respond, all that sort of stuff.
Well, and this is what we talk about as a typically male, broad tendency, broad generalization, but the tendency for our boys, if we do give them that heads up of, hey, I want to talk to you about X after dinner. So that